This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about how Bitcoin can easily get to $500,000 per coin. This thought experiment was actually started by Satoshi back in the old forums, and the thought experiment went as this. He said, imagine there's a base metal as scarce as gold, but with the following properties: boring gray in color, not a good conductor of electricity, not particularly strong, and not useful for any practical or ornamental purposes like jewelry, for example. But it did have one special magical property, which is it could be transported over a communications channel. And Satoshi theorizes how useful this would make whatever this sort of digital metal was. Now, if we take a look at the current market cap of gold, it's approximately $12 trillion. To put this in perspective, the market cap of Apple is about 2.6, Microsoft 2 trillion, etc. If we go all the way down, silver is about a 1.4 trillion market cap. And actually already on this list, Bitcoin is number 9, the ninth asset on this list, with a market cap of 825 billion. So what if we assume that Bitcoin is able to achieve gold's market cap simply because it's a lot like gold, but it's much easier to transport, it's easier to store, etc. Well, one way of calculating this is we could go to gold's market cap, say it's approximately 12 trillion. No one knows the exact market cap because it's fairly difficult to understand the complete supply of gold above ground. People have various numbers, but the numbers are usually somewhere between 10 trillion and 12 trillion. So if we assume Bitcoin gets to the same market cap as gold, achieves a market cap of 12 trillion, in order to calculate the value per coin, we would just take 12 trillion divided by 21 million total coins. That gets us to a price of Bitcoin per coin of 571,428. So we already get above 500,000 that way. Now, if you're finding this video helpful so far, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Maybe share this video with a few friends as well. Now, there's another way of calculating this. Rather than using the full 21 trillion coins, we could use the number of coins that have currently been issued or mined, which is approximately 18.972 million. So we can do that calculation as well. Just divide 12 trillion divided by the number of coins that have been mined as of the time of making this video, and we end up with about $632,000 per Bitcoin. And again, this is just assuming that Bitcoin does as good as gold. It's much different from gold. It's really a monetary network, and it has many properties that gold does not have. For one thing, there is a lot of gold. There's a lot under the oceans. There's a lot in the Earth's crust. There's a lot of gold in the solar system as well, on asteroids, for example. Another property that gold has is when the price of gold goes up, gold miners do their best to increase production, and they have all these various places they can start to look for gold. With NASA's help, they can look in space as well. There was this story last year about this Congolese mountain of gold that was discovered, and so there is this idea that there may be a lot more gold, even close to the Earth's surface, than people may realize. In addition, as I mentioned, NASA is sending a mission to the asteroid-rich, the metal-rich asteroid called Psyche, that's in the asteroid belt. So there is this ongoing search for gold, and the final supply of gold is obviously not known. Now, it's obviously going to be expensive to go into outer space to get gold, but this is just meant to demonstrate that you can increase the supply of gold if you want to. And Bitcoin is very different from gold in this way, whereas Bitcoin has a very highly inelastic supply. And what this means is it doesn't matter how high prices eventually go, higher prices can never increase production. Even if the price of Bitcoin skyrockets, Bitcoin miners can only mine 6.25 new Bitcoin every 10 minutes on average. That's the average block time for Bitcoin. And that amount is obviously halved every 4 years. So in 2024, this will be cut in half again. Now, if you compare that supply curve with the supply curves of gold, silver, wheat, houses, other traditional commodities, and then stores of value like houses, these all have much more elastic supply curves. As the price of wheat, for example, goes up, farmers will start to plant wheat on the sides of their houses, in empty fields, etc. They'll plant wheat wherever they can find some space. Likewise, with gold, as the price goes up, so it's not easy to increase the production of gold, but we could have technological advances which make it possible to mine gold more efficiently, and to, for example, dig deeper under the Earth's crust or in the oceans, or as we said, in outer space, to find more gold. There is no technological advancement that will increase the production of Bitcoin. In addition, Bitcoin has many much nicer properties than gold. And what I'm trying to argue here is that Bitcoin is overall a better commodity. It's a better store of value. It's a better monetary good than gold. And as such, it should be valued at 12 trillion or more, because it's at least as good as gold, and I think a lot better. Again, someone might interject here and say, well, gold has all these industrial uses in electronics, it has uses in jewelry, etc. I think this actually complicates the matter when you have a commodity that is meant to function as a monetary good, and it also has real-world uses as well. You could say that aluminum is more useful than gold, and silver is more useful than gold, and has more industrial usages. But it's striking that the market cap of gold is much higher, for example, than the market cap of silver, even though silver has more industrial uses. And the perfect monetary good would have zero industrial uses. And so you would have a much purer price signal for the price of money. So to go back to the comparison between gold and Bitcoin, gold is obviously much more difficult to verify or assay than Bitcoin. We have lots of cases of gold counterfeiting, where you'll have a bar of gold that's gold plated or gold on the outside, and the inside is some other base metal that's not as valuable. Gold, in addition, it's much more difficult to subdivide. If you have a gold coin that's worth a couple $1,000s or even a couple $100, how do you buy coffee with this? How do you scrape off a little bit to buy groceries or to pay your friends? So gold is much more difficult to subdivide than Bitcoin. Each Bitcoin is automatically divided into 100 million Satoshis. And so it's very easy to spend, even do micropayments with Bitcoin, which is not possible with gold. Obviously, there are huge developing country use cases for micropayments, and just gold doesn't work under this environment. Gold, in addition to being much more difficult to subdivide, it's more difficult to store. Your house becomes a honeypot. It's very difficult to move around, to take on an airplane, or to carry across borders, or to take on a boat. And so when we do this comparison, we realize that Bitcoin really is a superior form of monetary technology compared to shiny yellow rocks. Now, gold has served its purpose over the past few thousand years in the same way that physical bookstores have served their purposes as well. But we now are entering the digital age, and when we see what the youngest generations are interested in, they are interested in the internet, they're interested in digital goods. And this means that there are very strong demographic headwinds for gold, but very strong demographic tailwinds for Bitcoin. So if we assume that Bitcoin is at least as useful as gold as a store of value and or medium of exchange, we get to $500,000 to $600,000 per Bitcoin. Now, if we zoom out even more and start to think of Bitcoin as a global reserve asset, which is what US Treasuries are, central banks store them on their balance sheets, etc., we end up with much higher numbers. So the current amount of US Treasuries out there is approximately 28 trillion. So we would get more than double the value of Bitcoin if we were to use this as the template instead. If the value of Bitcoin rises to the level of US Treasury debt, we would end up with Bitcoin north of $1 million. And this would just be Bitcoin replacing US Treasuries as a global reserve asset that people hold it on their balance sheets, corporations, individuals, governments, and central banks as well. If you want to scroll out even further, you can talk about the whole size of the global bond market, 119 trillion. Much of this is still negative yielding, and as such, it would make sense for some of this money as well to find its way into Bitcoin as well. So you can come up with much higher numbers. You could also compare Bitcoin to global real estate. Much of global real estate is really functioning as a store of value and as a monetary good. You have a lot of wealthy people who have empty houses. So, for example, in Vancouver, British Columbia, at least a lot of Chinese immigrants used to park their money in empty houses. And so we could come up with, I think the global value of residential real estate is north of 100 trillion as well. So we can come up with much higher values for the price of one Bitcoin. But what I want to leave you with here is that just even if Bitcoin can replace gold as a monetary good, we get much higher numbers for the price of Bitcoin, $500,000 and above. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.